Hello and welcome to this episode of Read Play Game, where we look at tabletop role-playing games from every side of the table. I'm Levitation Enlow, and I'm the rules lawyer for today.
I'm Emma Skaggs, and I will be playing today.
I'm Anish Maraju, and I will be playing today.
I'm Michael Sparks, and I will be playing today.
And I'm Tori Jewell, and I'll be playing today.
This episode is once again going to be one of those where we kind of have a hybrid read-play episode. There might be a little bit more of a distinction with this one, depending on how much time we record for. But if it's your first time tuning in, normally we'd talk through the rules and character creation in a read episode, then get into the gameplay in a separate play episode. But this time, the character creation is the gameplay. But we will still be giving an overview of the game before we get into that. Today, we are going to be looking at Single Unique Power, or SUP, as it's referred to often. I don't know if, I guess we could also say SUP. I think
we're going to say SUP.
SUP, yeah. Nothing much.
SUP dogs.
With you. It is a cast-creating, world-building game designed by Tyler Crumrine at Possible Worlds Game. Nope. It's not a singular game. I don't know. Okay, we're tired.
It's 9:40 in the morning, and we're here.
It is a cast-creating, world-building game designed by Tyler Crumrine at Possible Worlds Games, because they've got plenty of games over there.
What do you mean?
I said world. I said singular, or I said singular game before, but it's Possible Worlds Games because they've got a lot
There's
of them, not just
games.
one. Anyway,
we're gonna re-record this.
Single unique,
Unlimited games, or unlimited bacon but no cake.
Single unique power is a game I
Did you say I just
We have to clean start this entire section. We gotta eradicate it.
Let's pause recording.
No.
Take 5.
That's too
Everyone
much
go
work.
for a walk. I'm kidding.
Single Unique Power is a game that was designed in, I believe, 2021 as part of the Possible Worlds RPG series, which is a collection of 6 games, including Wishlist, Dating.sim, Scene Thieves, Grandpa's Farm, and Hounds. Tyler designed these games to be accessible and digestible, hopefully able to be played by anyone, that anyone, including his brother, who, as Tyler puts it, doesn't have time for complex players' handbooks and doesn't own any weird dice. So it aims to bring out creativity in people without getting bogged down by a lot of complex mechanics, in some of those larger, like textbook, like RPGs that can sometimes get confusing. And it seems like to design a game like that, you probably need a pretty good understanding of those bigger games like that, which makes sense considering Tyler has a lot of extensive experience in game design. Which, when I first found it, was what actually attracted me to it. I found it in a game shop over in San Francisco, and it was just this little notebook. It's so compact, and so it's just this cute little notebook that can fit in your pocket, as they say. It reminded me of Blue's Clues, which is why I picked it up. That's not the other. It looked cool because I was also drawn to its very unique art style because it's
unique.
Exactly,
power.
And I think all of the art on all of them is done by Eric Lyde. I think they've all got sort of a cohesive design. But the layout is very easy on the eyes and very, 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 very well organized, which is great because literally the play of the game is put in bullet points and stuff that I'm actually using for when we're playing it to organize it very, very simply. So it's very easy to follow and very fun. But I think the thing that makes this game the absolute perfect game for us in particular is that Tyler comes from a theater background.
Theatre.
Yes,
Hey.
theatrical background. Mm-hmm. He's even been consulted as a theater and RPG expert for the Kennedy Center in DC, which I'm very curious about because I would love to know. Yeah, Michael's in DC. You should go check out the Kennedy Center and whatever RPGs they've got going on. So I'm very excited to hopefully learn more about that. But That being said, I don't think we'll have any problems playing his games, besides perhaps the quote unquote problems we ran into when playing the ground itself, where we were had almost too many ideas and went on for hours. But I think
Good problem to have.
Yeah, exactly.
Shout out to listeners.
Woo, okay. So, anyway, the game itself, for the theming of it, is inspired by what is it? The one person, one power trope, which is pieces of media like various different anime, like My Hero Academia, One Piece, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, even I think with like stands, and then like X-Men.
So it's each person has a single unique power.
Yes, so like
Hunter,
for
Hunter.
Finally
I was
get it. Yes,
confused.
Hunter, Hunter.
I thought one person, one power meant that one person, that it was only one person who had the like power, but that makes more sense.
No, yeah.
Like
Hunter,
each person gets a power.
yeah, Hunter Hunter is also listed here as one of the examples. So I guess it's much more. I was very common in anime, but it's a trope that you could argue for even a lot of different pieces of media. But yeah, the whole point is that a diverse cast of characters, each with very distinct and sometimes very creative powers. So collectively, we're going to create not only that world where the supernatural powers are real, but we will create our own cast of those characters to inhabit it. So let's get started. To play, here's a list of things we'll need, which we all have with us. We have 2 or more players, so you can play this with, I assume, up to as many people as you want, though for each player, there's a certain amount of preparation you have to do in the game, so it probably would take, as you add a player, it takes probably exponentially more time. I don't know, though. But we have 4 people playing today. We have 3 6-sided dice, writing utensils, a stack of note cards, and a pot for collecting and mixing cards, such as a hat or bowl. We don't have those last couple things because we're playing digitally. However, there are...
Hat, I was going to say our hat is the Google Doc. Right?
Exactly,
yeah.
yes. There are alternative rules for playing online, so we'll be using a Google Doc with different colors and stuff.
Lay tip.
For our... what?
Lay tip, because it's a hat.
Tori, that was one of...
Lay tip the Cookie Monster flat brim.
I really appreciate your commitment to these moments where you can see that nobody's getting it yet, but we'll catch up to you.
Think.
You know.
And I'm right back with you.
So yeah, if you want to play with friends but you don't live with them, feel free to or live near them. You can use their useful lay tips for
For online play.
for online play. Anyway, the game,
Play
as
tips.
it lists, is powered by, Michael, get ready, Sparks.
Hey.
So we're going to start the game. It's played in 2 rounds. The first round is about the setting building part. But to begin the start of the game, we are going to be generating sparks. A spark is a one-word prompt used to inspire creativity. Sparks can be nouns, verbs, adjectives, or any other kind of word. You can bring them into a game pre-planned, come up with them on the spot, pull words I Spy style from your surroundings, or randomly selected words by flipping through a nearby book. Sparks always need to be real words, regardless of your meaning or of their meaning or language. If another player asks you to define a spark, you should be able to do so. So what I'm going to have you guys do here is all text me individually.
Oh.
Because you're supposed to sort of write down 4 of them. It's 4 per player. And they get put into a deck and they're randomly generated. We randomly draw them. There are alternative stuff for online play, but I like the use of the random number generator. Because when we played it in person, we had a little bowl of them.
Is this like Mad Libs? I've heard of Mad Libs before.
In a way,
I think it's closer to Fishbowl than Mad Libs.
yeah, fish or what's the other name for it? Monikers.
Monikers, yeah.
That's a game that we as friends play a lot. So this will be quite fit. Also a game that we as friends and also theater people play.
So we're generating sparks.
Okay, I'm
Yes,
sending
should
you
be very
mine.
easy for you.
That happened to me about 25
just
years
do
ago.
4.
Yeah, just
I
send
sent you
4
mine.
separate words to me. And I'll be numbering each one of you. The order that we have on this document is Emma, Tori, Michael, Anish, so we'll use that. And so Emma will be 1, Tori 2, Michael 3, Anish 4.
And then back over again.
Yes. These are some good words, Emma.
Thank you.
I like them a lot. If you need inspiration for words, I can give you some of the examples that they have. And these are going to be used. It's not really that important that you know what they're used for, but I mean, we can all know the rules of the game. They're going to be used to get ideas for power sources, and also eventually they're going to be like single word inspirations for the powers for the characters. So if you want fire powers in your setting, make sure you use the word fire as a spark. Conversely, if spiders gross you out, don't contribute the word spider as a spark. It will come up because we're going to use all of these. Tori, I'm also a fan of your words. And Michael, your first word. Wow. I like it. No.
I'm trying to think of fun words.
One thing is players will give each other a variety of keywords from which to spin characters. Each player has the creative freedom to interpret these prompts however they like, provided that the characters fit within a larger collaboratively made setting. Some of these prompts will be easier to interpret than others, and that's always encouraged. And that's intended. Asking fellow players for help is always encouraged. So if you need any inspiration.
I did do a Mad Lib, not Mad Libs, an I Spy kind of vibe. I don't know if you realized that.
That it
when
rhymes?
reading No, like I just looked around the room.
Oh.
I have a question.
Yep.
Can a spark be 2 words?
Nope.
Only 1.
Yeah, it says 4 one-words. Each player writes down 4 one-word sparks. A compound word, I'm sure, is fine. And for listeners, if you're playing this in person, what this will be, instead of texting them to someone, you'll be writing them down on the index cards or pieces of paper that you have and folding them and putting them into the bowl.
Another kind of logistics question for the day.
Mm-hmm.
Are you playing today, or are you just guiding us through?
No, I'm just guiding you guys through.
Cool. Because I was like, you saw the words.
Yeah, that's why. Just to have, because normally you wouldn't really have someone who is.
No, that's super helpful.
I am just
There wouldn't
acting
be
as
a
the
rules
deck.
lawyer.
Yes.
Levitation.
So while we generate our sparks, we will take a quick break and come right back. Hello, thank you as always for listening. I'm just jumping in here again to talk about a couple things before we move on with the episode. First, we'd like to extend our thanks towards Tyler Crumrine at Possible Worlds Games for designing this game, since we had such a blast playing it. You can find the game at possibleworldsgames.com alongside the rest of the games in the Possible Worlds RPG, all of which are very affordable, accessible, and all worth taking a look at. Tyler is even launching a brand new game on Kickstarter on February 5th called The Details of Our Escape, which is actually an RPG that uses dominoes, which sounds really, really cool. So we're definitely going to be checking that out ourselves, and you definitely should too. We are also extremely excited to announce that we're going to be releasing an episode with Tyler as a guest later this month as part of our game discussion. We had such a great conversation with him, and we think it will be very valuable to players and writers alike, whether you're trying to learn more about the process developing games or just really like hearing about games. So be sure to stay up to date with the Single Unique Power episodes, because they are uniquely fun. We are once again thankful to you all for continuing to listen and share the podcast, as well as rating it if you like it. We also appreciate all of the game suggestions you've sent and have added them to our list. Please keep them coming by messaging us on social media or emailing them to readplaygamepod@gmail.com. I think that's it, so we can now jump back into the episode. All right, we've got our sparks, so let's go into the next section of the game. What the first thing we're going to do with the sparks is we are going to define what our power sources are for this world. So now each of you is going to draw, quote unquote, draw one spark And that's going to be one of our options for what the source of power in this. When we say like power source, think like in JoJo, like the stand arrow, like it's how people get the powers, or like where the powers come from. Or I think in One Piece it's like a fruit or something. Is that right?
Yeah. Devil fruit.
And then I guess in like X-Men, like they're mutants. So like it can be anything.
Yeah.
So I will give each of you your sparks. So first, Emma, your spark is, you get the word clothing.
And do I say it now? Or should I hold it in my head and be thinking about it?
Yeah, we'll be discussing through all of them.
When we're, like with the ground itself, it's collaborative, but there's a person who's kind of like the pitcher for each idea, you know? For this, is it purely discussion based, or is the person who drew the card the pitcher, and we're each gonna have to do a pitch?
Yeah, let me give an example that they list. 4 players draw the sparks: Silk, Coal, Silence, and Blessing. The group decides Coal is the most interesting to them and starts there.
Gotcha.
And then they suggest, one person suggests they could somehow be derived from like magical coal, et cetera, et cetera.
Cool.
They have all these ideas. After discussing possibilities for the other 3, the coal idea is still the group's favorite. They lock coal in as the power source for their setting.
Gotcha.
So you're basically just all getting
all working
this.
collaboratively.
At this point, yeah, it does not matter who draws it necessarily. I'm just giving you the 4.
So we should just make a pool of 4 drawn, and then talk
That's
about
true.
it.
I don't even really need to.
Message us.
It's very simple.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, the drawing
Yeah, so-
mechanics don't need.
Just to arbitrarily design
We
it,
lost
give
our
it to
DC. Oh,
different
wait, there it
people. We'll say, Emma, you have the word clothing.
Cool.
Anish, you have the word emotion. And Tori, you have the word shell, SHELL. And Michael, you have the word music.
Can I go?
Ooh.
Yes.
Oh, I do have a quick question.
Yeah.
Sorry, just clarification real quick. I think I misunderstood when creating the sparks. For some reason, I thought the sparks were like the actual power itself.
They're going
and
to
not
be.
the source of it.
They are. So this is the first use of the sparks. These same sparks, except for the one we choose, like the other sparks are going to be put back into the pool, and these are going to come up as powers later.
So, clothing.
Copy.
Clothing. So I would really like for us to go like unique place with this. And for me, clothing, as soon as I heard it, I thought Kill a Kill.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so
me
part
too.
of me wants to like, unless we can think of something else for clothing, to pull that and save it for a different one, because I'm just like, the power comes from the clothes and it's Kill a Kill.
Well, let me also read some guidelines for brainstorming approaches, just to keep in mind. So some of the questions that they have to inspire, like what this might mean, is like, does spark related exposure lead to powers? Does a spark related event lead to powers? Does a spark related item grant powers? Does a spark related birth lead to powers? Does a spark related childhood lead to powers? Or does a spark related training lead to powers? So any of those are possible origins for it, including the clothes.
And
So that's
we
where I am with
4
clothing.
are selecting one of these. That is the origin for every person in this world.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is the origin of powers in general.
Okay.
So that's
To me,
where
the
I am
most
with
interesting
clothing.
is emotion.
Yeah. Are we
What's yours,
thinking
Michael?
like
Mine was music.
music's also cool? Emotion. Well, I was saying emotion could be fun if we think of it as not everybody has these powers, but if you are like exposed to a high amount of this emotion when you're a kid, then it could affect you. I don't know. Like, I'm thinking of this as like kind of a metaphor for like PTSD almost, of like, if you go through a profound emotion when you're too young for it, then you develop a superpower.
And I think it could be interesting to explore like how the different kinds of emotions manifest in different ways, maybe, you know, because I think a lot of the times it's just like, oh, I'm angry. And so that like makes a power, but it's like, oh, it's like extreme amount of, and how like any extreme amount of a certain kind of emotion is not necessarily good.
Yeah.
like, you know, happiness turns into something like euphoria, where you kind of like lose your like mind in a way, or like anger, or like rage, like that kind of stuff. I think could be
Yeah, that
fun.
could be fun.
What could also be interesting, I'm reading the question, does a spark-related childhood lead to powers? And when I think about an emotional childhood, you know, in the serious sense, it could be like if you're raised in like a terrible situation, there's so much loaded emotions that come with that. And I think a really popular trope in superhero media is exploring trauma through powers. Um, so like immediately I think of like schools designated for people to learn how to get over their trauma, right?
Or
And control their powers. Hmm?
or
Trying to
schools
sedate.
designated to evoke powers from children, like
Oh, yeah.
evil schools that are trying to build super soldiers.
I think that sort of world kind of lends itself well to creating villains, because when you create trauma in somebody and it manifests as a power, they're more othered. And I think that can lead to more fear instead of the people who could reach out to them for help. So that is pretty interesting.
I don't know if this is where we would go with, like, if this is the, you know, the purview of the game, but something in terms of like an extreme, something like a religious group or something like that, where their goal is, instead of to evoke emotions, is to suppress emotions and like prevent people from learning about, you know, things that might upset them or something.
I like the idea that, because I think this is generally true. Like it's harder to it can be harder to create a like profound sense of happiness than it is to create a profound sense of woe. You know, like it's easier to hurt someone than to build them up. So like there might be happiness based powers, but they're much rarer. I feel like, because like we all go through hardships in life. It like if you're just going for building powers, it's probably easier to like pile on hardships than try and create a loving, wonderful place for someone to live, because there's always going to be a little something wrong.
And these ideas are all very interesting, and much like the ground itself, there's kind of opportunity to go more in depth a little bit later. Let me read through the example just to give kind of the scope of what we're looking for right now. Taj suggests superpowers could somehow be derived from magical coal. Aaron, this is with the spark coal. Aaron adds that coal makes her think of caves. What if the magical coal was connected to cave monsters in some way? Max mixes the two ideas. What if monsters lived inside power users' stomachs and feeding them coal granted superpowers? Arlo really likes the idea, but wants to make sure the monster relationship is consensual. They propose contracts need to be signed with monsters to acquire powers from them, and everyone agrees.
Yeah, I think that we do have. I think we could go over some of the other ones and see if,
I would like to explore them. Music. I feel like immediately I
Yeah.
think of like, what if you played a different instrument, got a different type of power?
Is this the plot
Yeah.
of Trolls 2? I don't know. I haven't seen Trolls 2. But I like that of like different genres.
if when people sing, they become very colorful and are able to you know, be happier. No, but I definitely think the instrument thing, but I also think something like kind of like digging deeper into like rhythm, like, you know, something where I'm trying to think of a specific thing in something like JoJo's, but it's like, oh, you're playing at like jazz or like rock, and like what kind of powers does that manifest? And like you're playing on like quarter time, like, you know, 4/4 or like 4/3 at cut time, you know, I don't know.
Did anyone
how does that
play
change
Legend of
things?
Rayman? They would have like final boss levels were set to music. Anyway, I also, especially being that this game creator comes from a theater background, I hate that musicals don't get the. I just feel like they have so much potential, because when you have a feeling or you're going through an experience that words literally cannot capture, it can only be expressed through song. There's something so like beautiful to me about that. So I'll go ahead and just plug in like whatever support for musicals. Like it, on a side tangent, the fact that the Mean Girls movie musical they are not mentioning is a musical, and trying to
Yeah.
trick people into coming to see it and then surprising them with music, it's a little like, I wish we would just full send on him.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the idea that the way that people use their powers is when you hit this limit where it's like, I just have to burst out into song.
I like
Wonka is a musical
when
technically.
we
Stop
think
that,
about
reverse it.
when we think about origin for power, I'm also thinking in terms of world building. Is this something everyone has access to? Is this something that only some people have access to? So with music, I think that's interesting in like, could anyone tap into power? But you have to train. Like, could anyone? Like, that's, I think, has a lot of possibility to delve into later.
Yeah.
Yeah, is it like a mom is like humming her favorite song while
And it
making
heals-
food, and it heals like her kids? know?
Just like mundane powers as well as huge
Like
powers.
really
Singing.
extreme music. Yeah, I do enjoy that.
You're
Me encanto.
you're singing to the birds, and they like come and fly around you and then become your little death squad.
I love that, as sinister as it is.
Yeah.
It's a Shrek 2 reference, I believe, or Shrek 3.
Yep.
Fan.
Music
Shrek 3. Yep.
music
very
can be
sinister
so manipulative too. Like I think about the use of music in like cults of evoking emotion that you think is related to this like mystical experience, but it really is just that music has a profound effect on the body.
A politician walking out to like a full orchestra to like manipulate
Yeah.
the
You
masses.
know, playing YMCA.
And music as a source for power could be so fun for collaboration too.
Like exploring dissonant harmonics, but I think also something about music, like talking about manipulation is, people who like get other people to write their music versus write their own music, or something like, a lot of country music where it's, some people actually have experienced like hardships and stuff and they're writing about that, but then you have, these singers who are like multimillionaires singing about riding trucks and
Sick.
having a tractor, but they
Sick Bo
don't.
Burnham reference, Michael.
Exactly.
Can I swerve for a second? I just want to pivot to like those questions about the sparks leading to powers. I feel like we have not given clothing the attention it deserves, because fashion is such a unique way of expressing yourself visually to the world, and it'd be a cool way to communicate, hey, I'm dressing in all red, maybe I have fire powers, So I think maybe it's items that grant power. We said Kill a Kill as a reference, but like, what if it's like fashion designers control powers in the world? Like, it's not. I don't know if like those anime references involve like creating power, but like, what if the arrow, like the stand arrow, is like somebody making a really good piece of clothing?
And that's kind of fun in terms of given versus created, of like a lot of people receive these powers, but I mean, you could get a sewing machine but like looking at, I don't know, the difference in power there in terms of capital.
I've been trying to think about with music, talking about like what sparks that initial discovery, development of power. And I was like, what if it's something like, I feel like with a lot of superhero stories, you have that inciting incident or something, like with something like Static Shock. There's this big explosion at this waste plant and everyone breathes in these chemicals and they develop superpowers. Or in Misfits, there's the big lightning storm. What if it's something like with music, I don't know, this is just spitballing, but something like there's a song on the radio or something specific that all these people are able to listen to, and that kind of like infects their brain with like some specific tone or something. Like there's a specific, my imagining is there's like a specific note or like tone, like harmony that like people listen to, and that kind of incites it maybe.
What if-
I don't know.
Tori, were you going to say something?
Yes, I was going to say reinforce and celebrate that. I do think we're exploring clothing ATM.
I think we can jump around.
Yeah. We
Especially
haven't
because
talked
we
about
haven't even talked about Shell. Yeah.
Shell, yeah.
Yeah.
The first thing I thought of when I heard it was more like an individual's power, which it's kind of like, I don't know, some scenes in Naruto where somebody's power is to see through where the supervillain's actual motivations are and say that phrase that they need to hear that breaks through that tough exterior, where it's just like, you don't have to do anything to be deserving of love. And then the supervillain's like, like, That was my first thought when I heard it, but that's not necessarily an origin.
I think we are going very meta with a lot of these origins, like very like everyone can grab it or like we can create it. Shell, I think, puts it in a like what if it's a creature? Like a creature in a shell that grants powers.
Like a conch shell or something, and you
the
know how you
magic
listen.
conch.
Yeah, no, yeah, exactly. You listen to hear, the sound of the beach or whatever, or the waves, and you like raise the shell, and I don't know.
Can I have a power to
you
use?
like listen to the thing.
The idea I had, like, I love beaches and I love looking for unique shells. That's like I have like a bag of shells right next to me. So, what if the power system is just, hey, there are special shells in the world created from these special creatures, and sometimes they shed their shell, right? There's a whole culture of people that search for the shells because they grant superpowers. So they're divers that search for powers, and like that's just how the powers manifest. I don't know what the powers are,
Would it
but that's
be
where they come
would
from.
it be a JoJo situation where the power is specific to the individual, but it has to be
Yes, exactly.
unlocked? Yeah.
It has to be unlocked.
I'm not playing, but I'm imagining a beach just filled with these shells, and instead of the beach that makes you old, it's the beach that gives you powers.
Yeah,
Like,
but after a shell
yeah.
is used, the power goes away. So that's what makes them
Whoa.
so valuable,
You have to
right?
keep
It's a
getting the
very like
shells.
every shell is completely unique, right? So the moment you pick
like in
one
One
up,
Piece.
you'll never get another power again. It's this unique shell, and I imagine people like carry it around with them as like a symbol of like who they are.
What if it's also like talking about if you were thinking about like the creature in the shell, like something like they have the snail in Murder Mystery Night. What was that specific? The spiral, like the poison.
Oh.
Remember, Emma? That
Oh,
poison.
yeah, those are real snails from I think Australia.
Yeah.
It's the
Cone
cone
snails.
snails. Yeah, cone
The
snails.
cone snail, yeah. Like, what if it's something like that, where it's also fun to kind of explore the creature, like if you pick up the cone snail shell or something, you gain these powers of like poison, like control, something like that, like toxicity,
Or like
and like
I'd say if the power is misused at some point, these creatures are gonna be like, okay, guys, and then like thousands of shelled organisms come up onto the beach and we're like, cut it out. Also, real quick sidebar. Crazy. I'm having crazy experiences with y'all referencing the murder mystery party as like a piece of media. I need that keeps happening, and I keep being like, what are they talking about? And then I'm like, oh shit, that was my thing. Okay, does it?
So yeah, you guys have talked through all four of these. Where are we drawn to the most? You had great ideas for all of them.
I kind of like the shell one. I feel like there's so much potential to develop a world, to be honest. But I like all of them.
Yeah, I think I'm in between music and shell. I like music for the universe, like the idea that anyone can participate, which I guess is true for the shell too. But I think that the shell idea that we had leaves a lot of room for truly unique powers because it could be anything. Like I feel like music, it's going to be tied a lot to genres and emotions of the song and stuff. But with the shell, it's like each individual one.
Just podcast.
I think shell interesting.
Just podcast wise too. Like I would love to do music if we had access to more production value and like could be like including piano interlude and stuff like that, whatever. So
I mean, I
I'm
could have some
hearing
royalty-free music. I don't know.
right.
That's kind of actually from a podcast point of view. That's
Kind of
crazy.
cool.
That's a lot of work for me though.
Single
Yeah.
unique podcast.
Yeah.
I think what I'm hearing is shell for most folks.
Tori, you win the first round.
Yes.
Is it
Yay.
you drew the card?
Yeah.
No, I don't know.
Awesome. Okay, so we're going with shell. That means I was wrong about the other ones getting added back. What they're going to be put in the discard. However, the discard can be used later. So I will keep a track in the document of what our discard currently is. Our discard is just the stuff we have not used, which at the moment is sure music, clothing, and
not shell.
emotion. Okay, now we can go into some of those excellent details that you guys were discussing a little earlier. This is the setting details section, which is where we will answer some specific questions. Now that you have an idea of where superpowers come from, answer the following this or that questions as a group and help make sure everyone's on the same page. Some answers may fall between the two options presented, and that's okay. Take time to adequately discuss options and aim for group consensus, breaking ties as needed. First question. Are powers in your setting innate or acquired? Are people born with powers, or are they brought on by an external force?
I think we got that.
Yeah.
The shells.
Acquired.
I am curious, and I think that this falls under this question. When you pick up and use one of these shells, does it awaken an innate power in you, or does it give you like the innate power of the shell itself? You know, like, is it going to match you in some way, or is it totally random?
I think it could be kind of a combination, because it's like I feel like there's so many different kind of creatures, like not just snails, but also stuff like a turtle type creature. Like, if we're considering shells, like, can it also be some other kind of like a crustacean type, thing. So I feel like blending that kind of creature with your, individual self could be interesting.
I also think like imagine a world where like a mother is with her son on the beach and she leans down to him and says, "Now, son, one day you're gonna find the shell that's meant for you. There's only one shell and it's just as unique as you. Don't need to stress about it. It'll find you."
You're
right?
like drawn
So,
to
like,
it.
Like maybe there's a spiritual attraction, or people say there's a spiritual attraction, but I still think regardless, there is an industry that could be like all about like, let's find shells.
And I think we talked about this a little bit, but just to specify, you pick up and like connect with one shell. You can't keep collecting powers, or can you?
No, I don't think so. Or if somebody finds a way to do it, it's because they have
a shell that lets them collect powers.
It's like the JoJo Big Bad that gives them.
Oh my god,
they have like
describing One Piece right now. I think I just made One Piece.
I was thinking describing
like Blackbeard.
Part 6 of JoJo.
Oh yeah,
Blackbeard, where he gets the dark fruit and he's able to absorb things.
I was just gonna ask if One Piece is just JoJo and JoJo is just One Piece, and I didn't know this whole time.
Sort of.
I mean, I think JoJo, like every manga anime that has a character that like gets a single power that's like unique to them is pretty much like inspired by JoJo's stands.
Slay.
So yes, we have the option where like each person has a specific shell. You don't know where it is. You don't know when it will find you, but that potentially, if this world that we're living in is like whatever, capitalistic, I don't know, then you might have people running like mining operations trying to hoard shells, even though they can't do anything for them. They know, oh, if this is your shell, you have to pay me $1,000 to get it, or something to that effect. I don't know. The other option would be some kind of like, maybe there are 3 shells of power that you can travel to, kind of like a Sorting Hat type vibe, and those are the sources. You have to come and like either listen to it or touch it, and that's where you get your power. Like I could see them excavated from like, those deep caverns of the oceans that we haven't quite discovered everything.
These are great questions, and they are included on the list. So if you want, we can jump into one of these questions.
Yes, we can jump around.
Yeah.
I kind of forget. Well, our power user. Well, okay. I guess.
I think that might be source known.
Is the source of powers in your setting known or unknown? Regardless of player knowledge, do characters in your setting know where powers come from, or is the cause of superpowers still a mystery being investigated?
Sounds known.
This is the 4th question, right? We're just jumping because it was relevant to the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of like the idea of it being like, we've talked about it as like what this world could turn out to be with mining operations, but what if when we're looking at it, we're in early stages where like people are figuring it out.
Oh.
I was honestly thinking like, what if, like, I think mining, I feel like for me personally, what if, I think it's more interesting if the shells are all tied to like individual like creatures,
like a lobster,
like something like that. But they're their own, like the shells, the creatures inside their shells are like unique. So when you get the shell, you're pairing with that creature or whatever. So
what if humans have nothing to do with it, and it's just the creatures with powers are like clams and crabs and stuff?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. That's what I was.
When you
that's
like
what I'm saying.
do it.
Or like,
are you saying the characters are gonna be crabs?
Crab
Oh,
people.
that's
Or
not what
it's
I
like
was-
you eat
But
the
that's-
clam and then you have clam powers.
Do any of y'all know like his Dark Materials?
Yes, I love his dark materials.
I'm thinking something like
Like
demons
demons?
and that.
Oh, I think we're still
Like-
talking about question 1 then.
Let's
Yeah.
start with question 1. I think let's start with question 1 and
Innate or acquired?
Acquired through a relationship with a shelled organism.
okay.
Yes,
Wait, I see.
that's
So-
what I'm saying.
You become friends with a crab,
and it bestows.
and it bestows you.
Is this kind of like
magic powers.
Chainsaw Man, where
That's
it's
pretty
like
slay.
Pochita?
I didn't think about that.
I also, when we've talked a lot, and this goes back into I think Source now, and I think we're going back and forth between these two, and I think that's fine. But the idea that you don't, I like that the power is unknown kind of until you've made the relationship. Like that it's hard, that people can try to figure out what power this shell is gonna give, but you don't really know until you get in there. So like I think there still could be like money around that of like get a shell because they're not, littering the beaches, like get a power, but we don't know exactly what it's gonna be.
And also maybe it's something like talking about like the money. It's like, oh, a lot of like powerful shells have come from, I don't know, this area.
Yeah, and then you
come
get
here
it,
to
and it's like your power is now you can smell a wider radius.
Yeah.
Like you can just get one that's like, oh, okay, that's fine.
Sorry, Michael texted the group chat a picture of the Enigma of Amagara Fault. If you know that.
Oh yeah.
This hole was
Oh,
made. For
this
me.
This
is
shell
my
was made for
shell.
me.
This shell was made for me.
Made for me.
Can I also, just so we're clear, I want to understand the flow of this game and how things work. I feel like we have 2 different power sources as of now. Relationship with shelled creature and then picking up and finding a cool shell. Because like a shell like you find on a beach, I don't think they have creatures in them, right?
Usually not. They're usually dead.
not. I think those 2 power sources lead to 2 different stories. So
Yeah.
I'd love to commit to one.
Yeah. The possible combo that I'm going to throw out there, ghost creatures. You're drawn to a shell, you pick it up, and then as you carry it in your pocket, you feel the pitter patter of little crab feet, ghost crab with the shell. So you can wear it like a necklace, but when you activate the powers, you got a little crab on your shoulder.
Kind of like fuck.
Like it's like the spirit of the
Shaman King.
animal, like the ghost or the spirit of this animal has come back and it manifests as your powers.
Be kind of
like Shaman
awkward if
King.
you ate it then.
Well, you're not eating it. You're not eating it. You're just finding this cool shell.
Yeah.
There
Does a
could-
fossil count?
That'd be pretty
like
cool.
Shells are kind of
Are you
like
saying like a-
fossils
like
in
a
a way. Like
trilobite?
they can be like
like
really
a like a
old,
trilobite,
right?
yeah.
No. So kind of, but like I think that this is important in terms of world building because fossils don't have any of the original like physical material. They've been replaced by other minerals. It's just the shape. And shells are like the calcium that the creature collected for its bones. So is it held in that or is it held in some metaphysical space?
Okay, so let me just make sure I'm on the same page. The powers are acquired through interacting with a shell that was once inhabited by a creature. Did we say the powers in our setting are many? They're just not all like super powerful. Some are like.
That's the next question. Are the
Yeah.
powers in your setting few or many? Do power users make up a fraction of the population, or do most people possess some kind of superpower?
I think shells are pretty localized to are you living near a body of water? We could say it's a society that uses shells as like building material. And I would honestly be fine if it's like pre-industrial revolution.
Yeah. I think that works. Pre-industrial.
And I propose something. Again,
Yes.
when I'm looking for shells on the beach, the coolest shells are like either, in my opinion, the ones that are like fully intact and like have a great luster to them. So maybe there's some really dingy shells, and like if you pick one up and it has like a spirit creature and it bonds with you, like you're just stuck with the power of like being able to like levitate small objects for the rest of your life.
That's
But
kind of fun.
if you find like a freaking conch shell and you've never paired with a spirit creature before and it's like beautiful and pristine, like you can control like telekinesis and like launch cars.
So there's
at
different
people.
rarities of shells.
And I think
Yeah.
And I think that we could also look at it as like right now it's few, but the potential for it to be many. You know, like it's not a infinite resource, but there could be a lot of, you know, like the number could grow.
Well, I'll say this. What if you find your shell, but it's broken, it's not intact, and in order to activate it, you have to find all the pieces? That would be like impossible. So let's say few people have them because to find an intact shell is like pretty rare.
That makes sense.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
Yeah. I think another thing talking about like intact shells, like something that could be an interesting, like, you know, talking about like there are like half shells, there are intact shells, then there are maybe even rarer, there's people who bond with like a living creature with a shell. Like I think that could be like,
Oh,
you know,
the creatures
like-
are
like they're-
so rare that
Yeah.
if you were to find one and you were to bond with it, like you'd get the best power.
that's what I'm saying. Like I think
Yeah.
that could be interesting.
Cool.
The
I
mother
think that's
shell.
the mother load.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can just imagine like the shonen manga starting and our main character runs out and it's like, man, I'll never be a big like superhero, and then like finds the thing. It's like, what's this? Oh my god! Now and then they're like paired with this thing, and then they
This
go
is
about their
specifically the
giant
kind of
crab.
media that you really like, Michael. I think the
Well, I also think there's something really interesting in like someone refusing to pick up any shells because they're like, no, I have to wait until and then they're so weak compared to everyone else they're interacting with, but they're like, I have to find
'Cause
the
you only
best
get one.
Yeah. Like the protagonist who refuses, but like one day
Yeah.
he does find the freaking hermit
Yeah.
crab on the beach with
Yeah.
the coolest shell ever.
You're never gonna find a shell, Tanjiro.
Okay.
Are power users in your setting localized or widespread?
Do they all come from the same city, town, country, or other locale, or can they emerge from anywhere? I think you guys kind of touched on this with the like beaches.
Yeah. I see some travel probably happening, but yeah, you have to at least get to this place.
What about? Again, I'm trying to minimize my creative input, but I just had this idea. What if there are some that are like you said, different kinds of shells? There's like turtles. So like, what if occasionally there's like a creek or something, and there's like it's more rare, but like someone more inland could find.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there are types of like clams like that are freshwater.
Mussels.
Yeah, in the creek behind
Mussels,
my
yeah.
house, there are tons of mussels, and
Nail.
I feel like that kind of tells its own story. Like people who are inland but near
Yeah.
tiny bits of water have smaller powers, and the coastal regions have bigger powers.
Yeah,
Cool.
it's fun.
Did y'all ever play Spore?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, but I've watched it be played.
It begins with a meteor like hitting a planet, and then what's in it are all these little tiny microorganisms and shells. So possible is like a meteor from some distant planet hit the world, and those were like the origin shells, and then like hermit crabs
Alien
move into the
shells.
shells and blah 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 blah. Maybe.
I like that. I'm always pro out of this world stuff.
I love that.
Super.
Well, that's a good question, because now we can go into the known unknown question, where like, is the source of powers in your setting known or unknown?
like they know that the shells do something, but they don't know where they came from, type of thing.
Or why? I like unknown.
Yeah,
I-
I think I know.
I like your meteor
Like-
idea though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think known
Do
in
I
terms
win
of they know it
again?
comes from the they know it comes from the shell, but they don't know
Why?
like why.
Yeah. And
I
that's
bet people
fun because
speculate.
yeah. And then they don't know if it's a finite resource, you know? If you don't know where it comes from, it's like, could we run out of shells or do these grow here, you know?
I think that's perfect. We nailed that question.
Yeah. Next
Cool.
one.
Is knowledge of power users in your setting public or secret? Regardless of player knowledge, are the general public aware of the existence of superpowers? Do power users keep their abilities secret from the rest of the population?
I feel like
Maybe
it's
a
not a
mix.
secret. I feel
Yeah.
like, if your little kid goes into the creek and picks up a shell and then suddenly starts like floating a foot off the ground, that's not a secret.
Yeah.
But I feel like we also mentioned there's different rarities, and so there may be like people with crazy powers, and those are probably public. But then there also may be day to day, like you said, like, oh, my sense of smell is really great, or I can levitate my spoon to stir my tea, but it's not like groundbreaking. I don't know.
And I could see some people wanting to keep their specific powers secret, or like just imagining like the big bad wearing a necklace with a huge conch shell on the front, because it's like, I've got something here, versus someone like keeping a clam in their pocket, of like, you could keep it secret, but people know that powers exist and people might have them.
I wonder talking about like keeping things secret, like not all shells are made of the same material, right? Or are they? I can't remember.
A lot of them are, but I know that I feel like we should look it up. You were looking this up. It's mostly calcium, right? It's just calcium stuff.
Yeah.
No
Because
clue.
I wonder if there could be like a way to look at a shell and be like, oh, it's generally like this kind of like, you were talking like referenced Hunter x Hunter earlier, Tori, where they're the different kinds of nin users, where there's like emitter, manipulator, all of that stuff. Like, is there a way to categorize shell powers?
I mean, I wonder if you kind of mentioned that being maybe by species. It says that shells are made of like calcium carbonate in the mineral form of calcite or argonite,
Yeah.
but they're made by animals. They build their shells by extracting the necessary ingredients. So if you guys are going with the meteor thing, the meteor could have fallen a long time ago, and it could be made of a material that the animals are extracting their shells out of.
That's so cool.
But it fell so long ago that like
my
all shelled
God.
creatures have that.
That's rad.
Yeah, I think that's a great way. Yeah, that's
So that's sort of question for it. Do the people know that's the case?
I don't think so.
I don't think so, but
Especially
we know
not
that,
if it's
and that's cool.
pre-industrial.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's so cool. Oh, I love this. I feel like we answered question 5 about public or secret
Yeah.
information. Like the
Yeah.
big powers might be kept a little bit on the low.
Uh,
Should we move on?
Are powers in your setting feared or revered? Whether encountering powers or possessing them, are powers in your setting generally perceived as dangerous or a gift?
This seems gift-ish, but I could see a lot of jealousy. Why'd Timmy get that power?
Why won't you share it? You're so shellfish.
It could also be that I'm just fully diving in here. It could just be like also
diving in.
Maybe the more
water?
powerful ones are more feared.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I think so too.
I think that makes perfect sense.
Okay.
Rad.
Cool. I feel like we got a pretty good idea here. Let's now that we've got our setting, I'm pretty sure that's the last section of the setting details. There's a mechanic apparently for randomizing the order of the questions, which is really interesting because it can ultimately affect the decisions you make. Anyway, we've established what we've got. Now we refine the genre. At this point, you should have the broad strokes of your world established. No need to decide every detail, but everyone should be able to give an elevator pitch of your setting. To the best of your ability, assign a genre to your setting. Based on all of your brainstorming so far, are you playing in a fantasy setting, a modern day setting, a futuristic setting, or something else entirely? Here's the example they give. Since powers in their setting rely on coal, our group decides it makes sense for the technology in their setting to rely heavily on coal as well. Max proposes steampunk as their genre, but Aaron notes that magic and monsters are hallmarks of the fantasy genre as well. In the end, the group decides on magical steampunk as their genre to capture both influences in their setting. What do you guys think?
Okay. There was a book. I'm trying to find what I think it's a German folktale. No, this is different. It might be Irish. It was called The Crow Girl, and I read it when I was a child. And it's this girl who lives with her grandmother on the coast, and they eat little clams, and then her grandmother dies, and she goes on, a journey of a coming of age story. She looks like a crow. That's why they call her Crow Girl. Like, she has dark hair. And that's a like folk tale. So I would like to pitch like folktale as a setting for this, of like maybe we see morals in the stories, or like the way that powers interact have like a lesson behind them.
Oysters, clams, and cockles.
um,
I'll throw out there. Nah, let me chew this.
no, I think while you're chewing, Anish,
Eat.
you mentioned like pre-industrial kind of like type setting, right?
I don't know if I mentioned it, but yeah.
Which I think that's where I was kind of going with folk.
Where you
Of
were
like
coming
it's
from, folk.
yeah.
I like that a lot. I think also one of my favorite, like, because it seems kind of fantastical, like fantasy-esque. One of my favorite fantasy series, Stormlight Archive, their setting is it's in this world with constant like rainfall and storms. So all of the creatures are like they ride instead of horses and like cattle. They have these gigantic crabs they ride on, and like these kind of like creatures in that era, in that vein, I guess. So I do like the folk kind of maybe even kind of like fairy tale setting, sort of like fantastical with because when you say folk, I think of something kind of like a Alice in Wonderland with kind of like outside of like humanity, like stuff is kind of like functioning on these like big creatures or something. I don't know.
I'm going to throw out maybe the shells are most powerful near bodies of water. And so it's a nautical pirate world. But we did just do that in the last episode. So
Wait, we did?
I mean, yeah.
Oh.
But I like
Oh, you're right.
I think you're gonna I could see nautical searching for the big mother lode. What are you gonna say, Anish?
One Piece.
We're making One Piece.
Yeah.
I'm just so busy looking up folk and like all the tropes of folk to understand it as a genre. But mixing it with like the nautical setting, I immediately think of like when you think of moral settings and places of discovery, the I think of like the Odyssey or the Iliad, and like maybe if it's pre-industrial, like you see those people with those really meaningful shell powers rising to power, and like
Yeah.
it's pre-war, but like maybe there's a folk element in there, because I think folk is something that's transmitted through oral tradition. It's about I think I think of down to earth stories when I think folk. That might be a wrong interpretation of it, but in order to fully explore the idea, I feel like the world has to be adjusted to fit a sort of theme like that, or a sort of genre like that.
Yeah.
Do you have any comparable media besides this lovely story for what a folk setting would entail?
Oh, I think now that we've talked about it more, I'm thinking of kind of folk / fairy tale of like Little Red Riding Hood keeps coming to mind, of like
Hoodwinked.
Yeah, hoodwink of of like, and I think why I'm drawn to this is because anyone can pick up a shell. You have to find it, but like, and since we're going pre-industrial revolution, like the stories there would be, good and evil versus each other, but there's not like it's more grounded in like small towns or small stories of individuals moving through.
Ooh, interesting.
So is folk more the theme of the stories that would be told here instead of like a genre or setting, or is it?
I think there's a way to make it a genre. I think it's fantasy evokes monsters and like all those things.
Okay.
But folk, I think, implies like small pockets of people.
Yeah. Which
local
this
conflicts.
is I'm pulling it up to review, and it does say in most cultures there's no clear line separating myth from folk or fairy tale. Like it's all, but like mythical like early days.
Then can I ask? Okay, we have our fantasy shell powers. Does that mean there are fairies flying around as well?
I don't know.
Because I think that's what this question is asking. Like we've assumed a regular world.
I don't think like fairy like I sent some photos in the chat in our like iMessage group chat because one of the things I loved about a lot of Brandon Sanderson's books is like in the Way of Kings, you know, this massive storm comes through all the time, and so all of the creatures and like the plant life had to adjust for that. So like massive storm comes through, the plants retract into the ground so that they aren't utterly destroyed by horrible winds and rains, and the creatures are all more like aquatic and like shell based. So I think that could be like how the world is like more based around. I don't know.
I just pulled it up to check, and like I think I'm thinking of folk in the like Studio Ghibli, where like the
I was
magic of
also
the
thinking
world,
that.
yeah, like the magic of the world is the shells, but there's a lot of mundane magic as well as these broader stories. Like everyone is part of it, so there's little stories to be found within the. Like you're gonna find the older sister character who does mundane magic in her house in the woods, who's gonna teach you an
Gotcha.
important lesson. I don't know.
Boy and the Heron, they had that huge like water-based
Yeah.
world at some point.
Yeah, I think the reason my brain was struggling was because in a game where it's single unique power,
Yeah,
you also have this fleshed out world with tiny other magics and things. So like
Yeah.
my brain has been shell. The can I because I've been thinking in folk so much. Can I pivot towards Michael's idea to explore that? Because I think there's something to be said to capture like the small town element, but also like imagine the world is filled with these also crazy shelled monsters, like Michael was talking
Whoa,
about,
kaiju.
like literal kaiju, and like what is a small town supposed to do against that? You know that feels fantasy, in a sense because there are monsters.
Yeah.
I don't think you guys ever said that the creatures necessarily have to be creatures that we've identified in our cult, like the creatures with the shells. Like they could, maybe they don't,
Yeah.
they aren't exactly hermit crabs or the
Yeah.
traditional animals we have in our world, but they are shelled creatures. So hypothetically, you could create any kind of creature for this. Yeah, maybe that resemble our real world creatures, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think my idea, it doesn't have to be like kaiju. I'm more saying like it can be folk, it can be like a mythic type thing, but it's like everything in the world is based around shells rather
Yes.
than like other magic systems.
Which I agree.
Where it's like, yeah, because it's like, I think, I like the folk thing, and that's kind of what I'm going along. But I'm trying to think of more, how is everything tied into, you know, like we're saying, if stuff is more focused on the coast, like how does this world, like, is the world more of like a coastal type, like island world, like water world type thing? Is it like, is there like, well, I guess it's pre-industrial, but like tourism, do a lot, like people like live in the coast, less people live more inland because of less, you know, prevalence of shells and that kind of
makes
stuff.
sense.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. And I agree. With my idea of like mundane magic, that all comes from shells.
Okay, cool.
I'm with
It
you.
all-
And
yeah.
just like that, I'm right back with you.
So
Yeah, exactly.
Should we say like a fantastical fairy tale sort of that sort of genre?
Yeah. It's almost
Yeah,
like
because there could be,
magical realism in
Yeah.
a way too.
yeah, because even in fairy tales, there's like, you know,
A mythical
dragons
setting.
and like big stories and stuff, but you don't necessarily, you have to go like looking for it, kind
And
of.
for
you know?
for us as, you know, creators of this world and what we've talked about before of like there's a meteor and they're gonna run out. I like the idea that the story, like the characters that we're going to create today, at some point this world will not have powers anymore because the resource will be used up, so these stories will become myths and tales that people tell.
Awesome.
Love that.
All the, like in fucking Lord of the Rings, the magic just leaves. Like in all the
Dang.
fantasy stories, they all like just lose it. The last dragon's dying.
That
All the
happened to me
elves.
when I grew up.
Aw.
Lost all my
Awesome. Well,
magic.
Real.
Lost my spark.
Hey.
well,
Well, Tori, I'll be back in New York soon.
we may have lost our spark for this episode, but we'll be right back with this setting and creating some excellent new characters for it for next week's episode. So join us for our second episode with the single unique power system on a similar side of the table, perhaps the same one.